Tonight, carving up Microsoft. Bill Gates says the government proposal goes too far, what it could mean for you. Casualties of the Elian Gonzalez standoff. Miami's police chief quits with some parting words for his boss.
I refuse to be the chief of police in a city that has someone as divisive and destructive as Joe Carrillo's men.
Revisiting Vietnam from 3 different perspectives, including the man negotiating the war's end.
We believe that peace is at hand.
From CNN, with anchors Wolf Blitzer in Washington, Joey Chen in Atlanta, and Jim Moret in Los Angeles. This is The World Today.
Good evening. Joey and Wolf are off. In the 25 years since Microsoft's founding, the company has made itself essential to almost everyone with a personal computer. But for the past 2 years, it's been engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the federal government and 19 states that want to put an end to behavior by the software giant that's been ruled a monopoly. Today, the government said the best way to do that is to break it into 2 companies. Needless to say, Microsoft strongly disagrees. Our coverage begins with CNN senior Washington correspondent Charles Bierbauer.
The Justice Department says 2 competitive software companies would be better than one monopolistic Microsoft.
Under our proposal filed today, neither the heavy hand of ongoing government regulation nor the self-interest of an entrenched monopolist will decide what is in the best interest of consumers.
Under the proposal, Microsoft would be broken up by severing the Windows operating system that gives Microsoft its monopolistic power in the industry from the software applications, such as Microsoft Office and the Internet Explorer browser. It was the browser that Microsoft bundled into Windows in the hope of excluding competing net browsers. The new Windows company would be permitted to install Internet Explorer for those customers who want it, but Windows would not own it.
There would be a prohibition on collusion that would last for 10 years. And at that point, of course, I think the companies would be fully independent and on their own.
Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates says the proposed remedy would not do what justice expects it to.
These proposals would have a chilling effect on innovation in the high technology industry. Microsoft could never have developed Windows under these rules.
Gates and top Microsoft executives would be restricted to work for and hold shares in one company or the other. Microsoft's regular shareholders would receive stock in both. In a letter to shareholders, Bill Gates wrote, "We remain open to a fair and reasonable settlement, but if litigation continues, we believe that the courts will ultimately rule that Microsoft's actions were both legal and good for consumers." But Judge Thomas Penfield Jackson ruled earlier this month that Microsoft was monopolistic and anti-competitive and oppressive to boot. On May 24th, Judge Jackson will hear arguments on the remedy and rule sometime after that. Because this is an antitrust case, an appeal could be expedited to the Supreme Court. The Justice Department's antitrust chief says he expects the breakup proposal to survive. But Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer says he's confident his company will not be broken up. One of them must be wrong. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, Washington.
Microsoft's legal troubles don't end in this country. The European Union is investigating the company. It wants to know whether Windows 2000 will give Microsoft an unfair advantage in Internet commerce in Europe. Microsoft's sizable bottom line has allowed it to either buy or invest in some 150 companies. Those ventures have paid huge dividends. CNN San Francisco Bureau Chief Greg Lefebvre looks at how Microsoft's investment strategies help turn it into one of the world's richest companies.
Microsoft invests its billions to achieve 3 basic goals. The best known, buy the technology it needs.
A strategic investment is where they put money into a technology because that technology will help grow their basic business.
Examples: Microsoft bought outright Front Page so its customers could make their own web pages with Microsoft software. Hotmail, without the time to invent its own internet email service, Microsoft bought one, got an instant product, and Hotmail's inventors got rich.
They were purchased by Microsoft for $400 million in stock, and that stock tripled or quadrupled over the next couple of years, so it's a good deal.
Second goal, slow down its rivals. Microsoft struck deals with computer makers to include Microsoft's Internet Explorer browser, hoping to bump off Netscape. The third strategy, make more money. In 1997, Microsoft invested $150 million in its then struggling rival, Apple Computer. Apple was selling for about $19 a share at the time. It's now topping $125. For that, Microsoft's investment is worth more than $900 million, a handsome return of more than 630%. Most of Microsoft's recent investments, which make many wonder if it's trying to buy the internet, satisfy the first goal of acquiring needed technology. Evoke, a voicemail site, and Real Names, which steers shoppers to certain businesses. Other investments planned for life beyond the PC, portable phones and Palm devices.
They have this vision of being able to connect to the internet from anywhere, anytime, from any device.
In the fast pace of the internet, if a company doesn't have time to invent the technology it needs, it may buy someone else's.
We need to keep in mind that Microsoft's radar is relatively high up. A little tiny company doing something small in the market's not going to get their attention.
And insiders say if you are the company with that hot invention, expect to hear from Microsoft. Greg LaFave, CNN, San Francisco.
The proposal to break up Microsoft is being made in the name of competition, and on paper, it's supposed to give consumers more options. Whether it works out that way remains an open question. Here's CNN's Rick Lockridge with a look at what a breakup could mean for you.
To punish Microsoft, restrain it, without punishing those of us, the more than 90% of PC users, who depend, for better or worse, on Microsoft products. Is that even possible?
I am not sure that this breakup is really going to fundamentally change the competitive playing field.
University of Washington business professor Charles Hill says a divided Microsoft wouldn't necessarily focus on giving consumers more choices.
When they consider writing a new application, which is a very, very expensive proposition and a risky proposition, which operating system are they going to write it for first? Well, they're going to write it for the operating system that has the largest market share, which, guess what, happens to be Windows.
But, goes the counter-argument, if you don't break up Microsoft, but instead give it new rules on how to operate, wouldn't you have to police it for years?
And having the government in this business, from what I've seen, for 3 to 10 years, going forward in terms of remedies and saying, okay, fine, we're going to police these remedies, that gets real messy.
Proponents of a breakup imagine a future in which alternative operating systems like Linux could get their own versions of Microsoft's popular programs like Word, Excel, and others, and could therefore give consumers a true alternative to Windows for the first time. But if the point is to weaken Microsoft just enough to restore competition, it might be instructive to look at what Microsoft did when forced to fight an uphill battle against a much stronger competitor, Palm Computing. Palm is the king of the handhelds, with an 80% market share. Microsoft's Windows CE software, even though it worked well with Windows PCs, was flailing badly.
In its first iterations, it was extremely clunky.
So Microsoft swallowed its pride, rewrote Windows CE, and reintroduced it this month as Pocket PC, drawing praise from a lot of former critics.
Now it's a much better operating system than it was.
The Department of Justice wants Microsoft to have to fight hard in every arena. The trick is to make that happen without hurting consumers in the process. Rick Lockridge, CNN, Redmond, Washington.
More details on the Justice Department recommendation and analysis of Microsoft's future can be found on our website, CNN.com. A look at what makes Microsoft its money and the extent of its influence later in tonight's Moneyline update. Next, Elion, new photographs, and Miami divided politically over the INS raid.
We're all coming for some closure. We're coming to say goodbye to some people we never got a chance to say goodbye to.
Also ahead, a return to Vietnam with the men of Charlie Company. And we revisit the war with one of the architects of its peace, Henry Kissinger, ahead on the world today. Called Saturday Night Massacre. We get the latest from CNN's Mark Potter.
In a deeply divided city, an emotional day at the Miami Police Department. Chief William O'Brien under attack from Mayor Joe Carollo and members of the Cuban-American community angrily resigned.
I refuse to be the chief of police in a city that has someone as divisive and destructive
as Joe Carollo's man.
Miles away at City Hall, Mayor Carollo fired back.
Like the old story that someone gets fired and then they say, "You can't fire me, I quit." You know, it's sad to see that Mr. O'Brien cannot even leave with dignity.
Since the early morning raid last Saturday where federal agents took Elian Gonzalez, Mayor Carollo has been angry with Chief O'Brien. O'Brien was briefed before the raid by federal authorities, but he didn't alert the mayor, who had actively supported Elian's Miami relatives. O'Brien said he was afraid if word leaked out, people would get hurt.
I was bound by law, but even if there hadn't been a law, there's no way I would have let him know about it.
The mayor was also angry some Miami officers